Shalom, and welcome once again to GMS Info Doc channel. I'd like to say Barakateh Yahweh.
Barakateh Yahweh.
Barakateh Yahweh Shai.
Barakateh Yahweh Shai.
Today's lesson, as you brothers already know, is a continuation from the series that we've been doing on the historical proofs of the 10 lost tribes of Israel. You know, we're just going to continue on with this lesson in this series because, you know, we're at the time now, like we've been saying, that the so-called Native American Indian and so-called Latin tribes are waking up, you know, to finding out that they're Israelites. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into the scriptures, bring out scriptures, we're going to bring out more proofs in history of different documents and observations that people have made over the years to show you beyond a shadow of a doubt that the Latin tribes and the so-called Native American Indian tribes are Israelites.
Right.
Indeed.
Because if I may say, because you got Beelzebub out here, right, messing with us, but they ain't gonna hinder the word from going out. But anyway, you got a lot of people that act like they don't know that the Latin and the Native American Indian tribes are part of the House of Israel. Now you got a lot of these so-called scholars. You know where a lot of their research go back to? Go right back to the Bible. It goes right back to the Bible. That's how they're able to trace them, and then they did what we're doing.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They traced the history of the 12 tribes and where they went. Yep. Then they located them as these Indian tribes, and then they linked up the different customs and ceremonies and ways of life that they were doing. Not right. Adopted, that they were doing naturally, and then that's how they was able to link them into the 12 tribes.
Right, that's why anytime they make a documentary, they'll speak about the Moabites and the Japanese, you know, the Ammonites, and certain African people, and certain Scandinavians and other so-called white people as being Israelites. The 10 lost tribes of Israel, and then they'll show you people down in Africa and people in China and Japan and all that, even though you have Israelites scattered among all those nations, you know, but that's what they'll show you, you know, and those are the main things that they push out, like in the Discovery Channel and other channels like that. Why? Because of the fact that they know the truth, but they got to push out lies, and now that this truth has been going out for so long, that's why they're pushing out more and more lies, you know, and the closer we get to the end and to the tribes waking up, the more lies they're going to keep bringing up.
That's right.
Now,
if I may say, now that's why the devil that basically brought or started slavery here in the Americas, which is Christopher Columbus, he's an integral part of this whole thing.
Right.
Because he took a bunch of Tainos and sent them back to Spain as slaves.
On ships.
On ships, before they brought the Negroes from Spain here to the Americas and throughout the islands first.
That's right.
So he was basically the progenitor of slavery in the Americas, Christopher Columbus. Now, another thing that a lot of these people negate. Go ahead, brother. Go ahead. Say what you got.
Now, just hold on to that one thought. I just want to, because he mentioned Columbus, you know, and he mentioned them bringing the slaves over here. They show you that in their series, The Borgias. They had one section where they show you the Taino slave. He was chained up and brought before King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella. Now, not only Columbus, but his son Diego Columbus, he was bringing slaves back and forth to Europe. So I just wanted to plug that point in. But go ahead, brother.
Right, and a lot of these niggas who talk shit, you know, you Yishmen, I'm gonna call you the Yishmen. The Yishmen that are out there that are talking shit, you know, the Yishmen. One thing you negate the book of Ezra. You don't even, you know what? You used the book of Ezra when you did your little bullshit video about Bantus, about the descendants of the 12 tribes are all black, Bantus, whatever bullshit. And I'm gonna strike you with that shit. But now, one thing you always negate is the book of Ezra's 13th chapter. Now, the bastard who progenerated slavery among the Indians here in the Americas was Columbus. Now, in this book here, Lost Tribes and Promised Lands, Ronald Sanders, by the way, Ronald Sanders, you know, the brother put it in there in post-production. On page 77, he says this: all his life, Columbus's ideas about geography were permeated with a peculiar religious mysticism. He kept a book of prophecies in which he collected quotations, mostly from the Bible. like Elder Monatazak was saying, most of the information these people get goes back to the Bible anyway.
Yep.
Now it says, often these dealings with isles far off that seem to prophesy his own discoveries. Now, there was a book that he kept with him. It says his personal copy still is in existence today of Pierre de Ali's Imago Mundi. Now, it says here, a striking element in Columbus's geographical religiosity is his intense and abiding interest in the 4th or 2nd book of Esdras. The 2 apocryphal books of Esdras purport to be additional writings by and about Old Testament Ezra. So Columbus had a fascination with the book in the Apocrypha known as the Book of Ezra. And in the Book of Ezra, it tells you about how the 10 tribes came over here.
Right. That's right. And I got the account.
And they show you that in that movie 1492 or Conquest 1492.
That's right.
With Gerard Depardieu,
who played Columbus, by the way.
Right. And he met with that friar or that monk or whatever the hell he was. And the monk was asking him, what makes you so sure that there's land over to this side, you know, of whatever, however many leagues or however you count that, you know, the seas, you know, chart, you know, how they're charted out, you know. And he told him, he said Tuscanelli, somebody else, he said Esdras,
that's right.
And then the guy said Esdras is a Jew.
There is a third way. By sailing west across the ocean sea.
The distance is unknown. It's said to be infinite.
Superstition. I believe the Indies are no more than 750 leagues west of the Canary Islands.
How can you be so certain?
The calculations of Toscanelli, Marin de Tir, Esdras.
Esdras is a Jew.
So they already knew that there was common knowledge that you had Israelites and you had land over here.
Yeah.
It wasn't a new thing.
Right. And as a matter of fact, since this brother Elder Ramla mentioned that, would you hold this for me? Now, since Elder Ramla mentioned that, I'm gonna bring out something out this book called World Explorer Magazine. Right? Now, this brother Elder Ramla made mention about you know, in the beginning of the movie when they spoke about Esdras and this and that. Now, there's a point in here I want to read about the guy who, this is the guy who financed Columbus and for the Nina, the Pinta,
right,
and the Santa Maria.
And they were so-called Jews.
That's right.
That's where he got his money from, so-called Jews. Because he was a so-called Jew.
That's right.
But while the elders get now, I'm going to read this real quick. This is Revelation chapter 20, verse 7. It says, and when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison. Now that 1,000-year period was from the time of beginning. It was starting around 193 AD when the Roman Empire started slowly switching hands until Jake, but it really didn't come into full force until 325 AD when they had Constantine and those other so-called church fathers that basically switched, you know, on the record, you know, not behind the scenes, but on the record, they switched from the pagan Roman Empire to the Holy Roman Empire, which it was nothing but the unholy pagan Roman Empire anyway. And that's when Rome fell completely to Israel. Now, from that point on, for 1,000 years, Esau was pretty much, he was a slave. You know, he was really pretty much had a gag on him. That's what that chain represents that Yahweh Shai had. So it says, and he was bound for 1,000 years. After like around 1325 and up, that's when they really started getting loose.
And the icon that proves that is an icon called a Day in the King's Court.
Right. Yeah.
Which is between that time period, which depicts Jake's so-called Negroes ruling under the you know, the Roman Empire, whatever, with so-called white people, Edomites, as slaves.
That's right.
They were basically they were judging them and chumping up charges on them, or whatever. It's called a Day in the King's Court, and that's what we was doing to these devils. That's why today, now that they're in power, that's why they do the same thing to Jake.
That's right.
You know, because they were basically put under subjection. Those chains was put on them.
That's right.
All right.
And I'll just finish up here. It says, and when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison. Yep. And he was loosed. He wasn't in an actual prison. the Most High just put a seal on him so he couldn't lie anymore to people. That's why when you read the first verse on down, it says, matter of fact, I read the third verse. It said, and cast him into the bottomless pit and shut him up and set a seal upon him that he should deceive the nations no more. Because everybody knows that from the beginning, Esau was nothing but a deceiver and a liar. It says, till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled, and after that he must be loosed a little season. Now verse 7, and when that 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth. So that's why from beginning with the Renaissance, which is around the mid to late around the mid 1300s on up, that's when they started to lie about everything, about history, about the black images all throughout Europe, which were Israelites, all those different iconoclasm and all those different paintings that they changed. And then when you come further up, basically what they've done is they've erased and burnt up the records and history of who the people that were on this side of the world are or were. So that's why there's really not that many records left of them. But the Lord put the spirit on certain men like Lord Kingsborough, which was a scholar that collected all those records that the Europeans kept, which are the Edomites, that they kept of Israel, and we have them today. So go ahead, brother, you got that? No. And then other records like this are brought out because this also helps further the proof that the people that are here are Israelites. We don't give a damn what none of you guys say.
Right.
The records are there. The scriptures are there and the records are there. That's right. So if you have a problem with it, then take it up with the Most High.
Right.
Kill yourself.
Yeah.
Now it says here in this book, World Explorer magazine, Far Out Adventures. The article is by Mr. W.R. Anderson. It says here, the Christopher Columbus that we all learned about in school may have been an entirely different sort of person than we are taught. It is possible that Columbus knew perfectly well that he would reach a new world, rather than China.
He knew perfectly well. It wasn't no probability. They knew it. They know it. Go ahead.
He knew he would reach a new world rather than China, as he told the Spanish royalty. Columbus was a fascinating person, and the more one studies this incredible man, the more fascinating he becomes, which he was a low-life piece of shit.
He was a faggot.
It says, the man who sailed in 1492 for the New World was a mystic and an adventurer, a utopian idealist, and man of great courage and vision. It says, despite the popular school depiction, there is a great deal of evidence that Columbus was not actually Italian, but a Spaniard who had assumed the identity of a young Italian wool merchant whom the Spaniard had once met and who had died at sea. By coincidence, the young Italian wool merchant from Genoa had the same name as himself, at least in translation. Cristobal Colon, known to us as Columbus, was by some evidence a Spanish Jew. For this reason, he decided to conceal his identity. Also, he was in possession of several maps that showed the coasts and islands of North and South America.
And there was this one guy, I forget his name. I just looked it up. I was just reading it either today or yesterday. I forgot his name. But Christopher Columbus married into his family. So the guy gave Christopher Columbus his daughter in marriage, and as a token of the father, for the marriage union, the father gave him a bunch of navigational maps that he had, which were old maps. And that might very well be where he got those maps to this side of the world.
Now, there's something else I want to read in. Now, I read that part. Now, I'm going to flip the page and get a little bit more information. Now, it says here on page 138. Now, this is dealing with page 138 and 139. Now, this is dealing with the guy who actually financed them and got the ships for him. His name was Martin Alonso Pinzon, a wealthy ship owner of Palos. Pinzon was responsible for Colon's acquisition of the Nina, the Pinta, and the hiring the crew for the expedition. It says in the series of lawsuits, I'm skipping down. It says in the series of lawsuits recorded, it was disclosed that Colon had access to the Vatican archives. Now, in order for you to have access to the Vatican archives, you got to be juiced in.
Right.
Not anybody can get to the Vatican archives.
Right. You can't
People
even
that
get there
actually,
today.
You can't even get there today. You have to have special clearance to get into the Vatican archives. Now, showing that Columbus was juiced in.
Right.
Now, how the hell he had access to the Vatican archives? Not any regular person can go up in the Vatican and go in their archives.
Right. And Columbus basically, what you know, in Columbus time, Columbus would be known what later became known in the 1500s through Ignatius Loyola as a Jesuit. You know,
right.
so he was a Jesuit before the Jesuit order was even established. But they had the same order going from back then. They just named it Jesuit order during the time of Ignatius Loyola and Francis Borgia. I believe his name is Francis Borgia, which he was a contemporary that helped to set up the Jesuit order. So Columbus was a learned devil, you know. That's why he knew what to do. That's why when he came over here, there was a point where the Israelites that were here, they were just cutting him off. They was about to roll on his ass. But he told them that that the sun was going to be covered, or it was either a lunar eclipse or a solar eclipse that was coming, and he knew about it previously, you know. So when he told them about it, then they got scared, you know, because they were superstitious and they backed off and they didn't do nothing to him. But if it hadn't been for that, his ass was grass. But that was a law because that devil had to be preserved because he had to bring the calamities that are written in the book of Hosea that came to Israel over here on this side of the world. You got more?
It says Cologne had access to the Vatican archives, which contain records of Viking voyages over a period of several centuries, probably including the original of the famed Vinland map of Yale University has a 20th century copy. It also indicated that Pinzon had obtained from Rome information about lands to the west of the Atlantic.
See, basically, they knew over there in the East, over there in Europe, in Rome, and throughout, they knew that it was a world over here or land over here.
That's
the
right.
thing is, it never was inhabited before until the tribes came over here.
That's right.
They were the first to inhabit it.
Yep.
Going all the way back, when you go in the Bible, in the scriptures, King Solomon, his fleet, Hiram Abiff and his navy, they were coming over here getting certain things from over here. So
That's right.
there was always, they knew about this world over here.
That's
See, a
right.
lot of you guys out there, you probably still believe that they thought the world was flat.
Yep.
Columbus knew that the world was round. He knew it was another land over here. There was Vikings that were voyaging over here. Like some of them stories, which were Jakes. A lot of them stories you hear about their voyages over here. All right. You see, and the reason why they put all that propaganda because they're trying to hide the truth. Because you start researching and finding these things out about Columbus, you're gonna find out what about the other tribes.
You're gonna start asking questions.
You'll start asking questions. And now on Columbus, and it's in the records, on his ship, he had a Moor, which was really an Israelite, a so-called Negro that converted into Islam.
Yep.
Okay, that's who the Moors were. He had a Moorish navigator, all right, who knew how to get over here to this side of the earth. Okay, he knew what he was doing. All right, he went and got basically a Jew, a real Jew, that Moorish navigator, to bring him over here to where the other tribes were, because Judah and them, they knew that the other tribes had left and set off to go over here. All right, that's why. And if I could read this real quick,
Bring it up.
real quick in the book of James. I mean, it's something that we always read, you know.
Overlooked this. I'll show the book.
But James.
Bring it up.
James chapter 1 verse 1. It says, James, a servant of the Most High and of the Lord Yahushai, to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad, greeting.
Right.
And now that word abroad ties in with the word diaspora in the Greek. All right?
That's right.
Because the tribes, they were dispersed, which was pursuant to the prophecy when you going back to Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter. The Lord said he was going to basically scatter or disperse the tribes through the four corners of the earth. And that's how that came about during that time period. All right, and Columbus knew about that. Everybody knew about that.
Of course. Because you know what? This information about the Americas, you're talking about 400, maybe 20 years before Columbus came over here.
Right.
The information existed going back to 1070 AD, dealing with the Leif Erikson and the Vikings coming over here to the Americas. Because they had established trade routes with the Native American Indians, and they had established trade over here, and they mapped America out. And these maps are known as the Piri-Reis maps. You can look it up. They're called the Piri-Reis maps, and those were the maps that Columbus had access in the Vatican Library. I got one more thing. It says here,
I just want to read this real quick.
Go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
Back up Elder Monazak, what he was saying.
Go ahead.
This is Nehemiah chapter 1, verse 7 to 9. We have dealt very corruptly against thee, and have not kept the commandments, nor the statutes, nor the judgments which thou commandest thy servant Moses. Remember, I beseech thee, the word that thou commandest thy servant Moses, saying, if you transgress, I will scatter you abroad among the nations.
Hey, that's it right there.
That's right.
And that's what the Lord said. Going back to Deuteronomy, the Lord said, if you break these laws, I'm going to scatter you amongst all the other nations.
That's right.
So how did that take place? By the Lord putting the spirit on the other tribes to leave from their captivity in the land of Assyria to come over here to what's now called America,
right,
or the United States, the Western Hemisphere,
to set it up for the deliverance at the end of days. Now this is verse 9. But if you turn unto me and keep my commandments and do them, though they were of you cast out unto the uttermost parts of the heaven.
The uttermost parts of the heaven. Now, it's not, if you're over there in the Middle East, would not America be the uttermost parts of the heaven?
That's right.
Yeah, I'm sure it would be.
It says, the uttermost part, let me read that again. Though they be whereof you cast out unto the uttermost part of the heaven, yet will I gather them from thence, and will bring them unto my place that I have chosen to set my name there. That's pretty much it.
That's it. That's heaven.
So, you got that other point.
Now on page 139 it says this, furthermore, studies by the Norse author Carey Pritz and by such American scholars as James Enterline and Paul Chapman indicate that Cologne had access to a number of maps reflecting transatlantic voyages over a period of several centuries. The existence of the American continent was known throughout Europe, certainly as early as 1070 AD, and that's around the time when the Vikings were making their voyages over here to the Americas, and they mapped out America. North America and Central and South America was already mapped out.
That's right.
So Columbus knew when he came over here, he knew the land that he was coming over here to.
That's right. And if I could just say this real quick too, and then in 1421, because you had the Moabites that started coming over here in about the 1400s. 1421, there's an actual map of Moab that came over to the side of the world at that time, around the 1400s, 1421, which is another map that Columbus had, that he used, that they knew that there were people and lands on this side of the earth. So go ahead, is there more?
It says, certainly as early as 1070 AD, from the writings of historian Adam of Bremen, commerce continued with Norway and Iceland, and with Bristol in England and America. By the end of the 15th century, Europe was ready to develop the lands that lay beyond the Atlantic. So that's pretty much it on that right there.
Yeah, the lands that lay beyond the Atlantic.
That's right.
Because they already knew that this land over here was here. It just some of them had to make their way over to this side of the world.
That's right.
All right, so now somebody get Isaiah 25:7. And the reason why this stuff isn't taught to you in your elementary schools or in your school systems or college and none of that is because of the fact that Esau, the so-called white man, is beginning with them so-called Jews, the Amalekites. They don't want anybody to find out about this truth. Yep. That's why they're paying guys to bring out certain false information to throw people off that are starting to wake up to the truth. Because the truth has already been out. That's why it wasn't until around, I believe it was like the 1990s, that they started bringing out that the Moabites over there in China, that they're the Israelite, one of the 10 lost tribes. The Japanese over there in Japan, they're the lost tribes of Israel. The Hungarian, or whoever,
everybody but the tribes.
Yeah, everybody but the tribes. And then, you could figure at least throw somebody
one of the Native, the
or
Brazilian,
Cuban or somebody, or a Native American Indian.
Yep.
None of that.
Yep.
And that was something that was pushed out because that the majority of people, they look at National Geographic as an authority. Even though they're not authorities, but they look at them as authorities.
Yep.
So they know if they put information out there, people are going to believe that shit. But you know what? It's only going to work for those that the Lord don't want. And we keep saying it. So you got that real quick?
Yes, yep. Isaiah chapter 25, verse 7. And he will destroy in this mountain the face of the covering cast over all people.
Right, that's the Most High. He will destroy in this mountain. What mountain? America. The covering. What's that covering? That matter of fact, somebody get Job 9:24. The covering is that veil that the so-called white man has set up over the whole world to lie to them, to lie to people about the nationality. But really, to really get down to the nitty-gritty of it, it's to lie to people of who the Israelites are today.
Exactly.
And the main thing is that the Most High and Yahweh Shai and the angels are black men. But underneath that, you know, outside of the names of the Most High and Yahweh Shai, who the tribes are. That's what troubles these devils the most. That the real Israelites wake up to the truth. So, and after you get that, and then Job 9:24, get Psalms 83. Go ahead, brother, read that.
Job chapter 9 verse 24. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked.
Right. So it came a time of appointed, and a period of time, excuse me, that the Lord gave this earth that you see today into the hands of Esau, because there was a time where different empires ruled the so-called known world at the time, but nobody ever ruled over the whole earth. You got a sword on you, brother? Get Daniel 4:17. There was never a time where a nation ruled over the whole entire planet Earth. But what happened is that there were certain periods of time where the people that did rule, they ruled over the so-called known world,
Right.
which was considered to be civilized, the so-called civilized world. But they didn't rule over the whole entire planet Earth as they do today. And the Lord gave that into their hands because there's certain periods of time that the Lord puts up one nation and takes down another.
Right.
Puts up one nation and puts down another.
Yeah, because if I could go a little further into it too, what the elder Ronald was saying, like basically America, the so-called United States, they got their flag all throughout the world.
Right.
In other countries. They got bases, they got no, they got airs.
And that's why they're going down. That's why when they said that flag was still there,
Yeah.
the flag at the Olympics fell.
It fell. Right, which is indicative of what's happening to America. America is falling. And see, back then, like when Artaxerxes, for instance, when they were ruling, he didn't have no flags over in his land that's called North America.
Right.
Only provinces he controlled were the ones that were known, that area over there in the east.
Europe.
Right, in Europe.
That's what he controlled.
Which was the known world.
Yep.
But the United States they controlled the whole world. Africa, Australia, Antarctica. They telling polar bears where they could swim and fish at, man.
Right. Yep.
That's how much control these motherfuckers got.
That's right.
All right.
And when they got control and they tell you that this airspace is private,
Right.
then you know you got a problem. Because if you go up into space, you're supposed to, that's just
That should be free.
free.
That's supposed to be, the heavens is supposed to be the Most High.
Then these devils, if you let these devils, they'll take over everything.
And guess what? And if you go by that airspace, they're gonna shoot you down. And not only the air, guess what? Even out there in the sea.
Yep.
A week or two ago, there was a regular boat. Somebody's boat was getting too close to a Navy ship, and they ordered it one time. They said turn around immediately.
Right.
And they didn't hear them over there. They kept going, and they fired up on the boat. It was just a regular boat that somebody was just driving, and they just shot the motherfucker out the water, man.
Hey, that's how the devil operates.
You know? Yeah.
That's the name of it.
Yeah.
But go ahead, read that, Daniel 4.
Daniel 4:17.
Oh, matter of fact, so like it, read that.
Job 9:24.
Yeah.
Job chapter 9 verse 24. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked.
Right. So who's ruling today? Esau, because Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that follow it. So now, before you read on, jump back over here.
Daniel 4:17. This matter is by the decree of the watchers, and the demand by the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men.
Right, so the Most High is the one that's ruling. You didn't rule because you were so big and bad and you had all this power. The Most High gave you that power. The Most High gave you that technology. He said knowledge will increase. The only reason why you're ruling is because the Most High already prophesied it, and he said that he's not a man that he should lie. If he speaks a word, it must be fulfilled. Otherwise, the Most High would be a liar, and he's not a liar. So go ahead.
That's right.
It says that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men.
Right, this is the kingdom of men, and the Most High is the one that's overall ruling. That's why it says in Romans the 13th chapter that you have to be subject to the higher powers, which is who? The Most High.
Yeah.
Okay?
And giveth it to whomsoever he will.
And he'll give it to whomsoever he will. Didn't we just read that the earth is given into the hand of the wicked? So who's ruling today? The so-called white man, which is Esau. So the reason why they're ruling is because the Most High gave them that rulership. Okay?
And setteth up over it the basis of men.
And who's the basis of men? Beginning with the Amalekites, them so-called Jews, them gutter rats, them scumbags. You know? Those are the Amalekites. Those are the basis of men.